Hey there, Film Buds. Welcome back to the Film Buds podcast. I'm your host, Paul.
And I'm Lauren.
And welcome to episode 240.
Woohoo!
Which also now, at this point, officially marks, pretty much completely one full year of hosting the Film Buds.
Yay! We did it.
September was my first, full month at the helm a year ago, and now here we are.
Yes.
I do have an episode coming up with Henry. I need to do the editing for it. I've been very busy. But we do, it's been such an interesting journey. We're also right in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month as well. Well, not in the middle, we're at the end of Hispanic Heritage Month. It is the actual Hispanic Heritage Month season still. Because it starts in mid-September and goes to mid-October.
Yes, but here on the Film Buds,
we dedicated all of September, and so since this is the last Friday of September, we're also wrapping up Hispanic Heritage Month here on the show.
Yep, the quarter is ending.
Yes. But I guess with all of that said, how do you feel about 1 year of the Film Buds?
Wow. I guess I feel like I should be, on a stage with a trophy. No, I'm kidding. I wish. No, I feel good. I remember a year ago being more nervous, on the Film Buds and, just about the idea of being recorded, I guess, and people listening to what I'm saying later while they're doing chores or driving to work. And, I think I'm fine with it now. I've accepted my place in the universe as a critic of this one thing. And I'm having a good time. Honestly, I've loved watching movies with you. We always watch movies anyways, and we always have these chats anyways. So it was just, two birds, one stone. You needed a co-host, and here I am, your right-hand man. Bada boom.
In all things.
That's right. In life.
Well, it funnily enough dawned on me today, I'm approaching 30. And so I've now known you for half my life.
Oh my gosh, yes. Wow. Isn't that fun?
You are my right-hand man in all things.
Yeah. Jazz hands happened.
And I very much have enjoyed this journey. It's, it's been a lot of hard work, but I always enjoy doing it. Mm-hmm. Lately I haven't been as, active in certain aspects of it, I suppose. But that's also, just because of the balance of life and doing a podcast on the side and that sort of thing. But I always enjoy doing this show. It always brings me a lot of joy and a lot of satisfaction. And I always enjoy getting to go and sort of, put together this really interesting watch list. It's the sort of monthly playlist sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy that aspect of it. And it's really broadened. It's given me a good excuse to just sort of broaden my own viewscape, if you will.
Which is a hilarious concept to me, considering the amount of movies that we live in a room filled with on a regular basis, that are 90% yours. And I'm not being generous with that 90. I maybe have less than 10%. I don't know. I've never actually counted the ones that I technically purchased myself. But like, the idea that you are still ever expanding your knowledge of movies, for me, the land of musicals is a smaller number. And I think that for Scape, it's just movies feel like almost never ending of the possibilities, which is fun. It keeps us in business as well, which is great. But yeah, with all the things that the fact that there's still room in your brain to fill more information is such a fun thing to watch.
Well, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield.
G.I. Joe.
And, it was one thing, in college, high school to college definitely expanded, where I met Henry, expanded, my knowledge base, but it's been good to have this show to really give me something dedicated to go back to and force me to relearn and grow in all those ways, because once you really realize that, film is just, in the short amount of time, this is, I guess, sort of what it is to a degree, in the short amount of time that film has started as an art form, it has also so explosively expanded, and redefined itself in so many different ways, and visual media has become so much a part of, audiovisual media has become so much a part of our day in, day out existence, that when you look at the history of it and then apply that to a global aspect, it's truly like the most explosive art form of the last century.
Well, it really is because of its accessibility, just of the medium itself.
Anyone can pick up a camera.
Anyone can pick up a camera, and going to the movies doesn't cost you a dime, pretty much, is the thing. Whereas, like, theater, it takes a lot longer, it takes a lot more resources, and
You need a stage.
Yeah, and it is an expense on the audience to experience, It is supposed to be this kind of, like, rich experience, This is something that you don't do very often. Where going to the movies, you can go to the movies every day if you want, if you can afford that lifestyle, So of every day, that's 365 new movies that need to populate the airwaves, and especially now with streaming, it makes it even easier. It's an ever expanding, to your point, it's an explosive medium where the possibilities are truly endless, and there are also vast variations of the same concepts, but at the end of the day, we keep going back to them because as an audience they are familiar, they are comforting, and they are also ever evolving as well, which is only to be done in film. We would never see where theater could go to this expanse because it just takes too long.
Yeah.
We've got 100 years worth of theater years.
Well, and again, it's
room.
also just the literal physical limits, of it.
No, yeah.
With that said, let's get on with actually doing some proper film budzing.
Yes.
So we came here to talk about our final Hispanic Heritage film, El Norte, which came out back in 1983. This is one that I hadn't heard of. And it was only restored a few years ago. Which I thought was particularly interesting. They had the whole title card about it. But we'll get to the movie in general in a little bit. It's a fascinating movie, though. I wanted to really make sure in Film Buds that we tried to touch on some different things, and we did end up really getting into a lot of Mexican Hispanic heritage in a lot of the films that we did this month. We started with Guillermo del Toro, who is a Mexican American or a Mexican filmmaker. He works in America, even though that movie was about the Spanish Civil War. And then we had, Y Tu Mama Tambien. Then we moved on over into Ruben Salazar, Man in the Middle. And that's, of course, about a Mexican-American man. And so with our last two films, we actually really started to travel into this very specific niche of Native and Indigenous cultures in Central and South America. Mm-hmm. Last week we did Retablo, which was about, Quechua people. And here we traveled into Guatemala. And so last week was Peru.
Yeah,
so,
we've really been, we've been exploring the landscape.
Yeah. And so it's been a really, really interesting month. And I guess before we get too far into this film in specific, how did you feel about finishing off, Hispanic heritage with these two films that focused very particularly on these indigenous cultures that are also tied to the Hispanic experience?
Loved it. I love learning new things. And these two movies in particular were exploring something that I had never gone down before, had never the flypaper of my life, it had never stuck to it before. And this was my first experience with these concepts. Really, because at the end of the day, I think that my South American history needs some updating. Mm-hmm. And I need to educate myself more thoroughly, I think, on South America and the history, the vast history that is South America, other than the fact that there were, ancient people that lived there, and now there are not. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so, but this was just fascinating to, it also, because the histories are so close mm-hmm. to us in the modern time as well. It's very graspable, really, really understandable, really, really digestible as a viewer. And no, I really just, I love a good lesson, and I want to go down this further because there were things about these films that I didn't understand that I would like to understand more thoroughly, just because I don't understand the politics of what's going on in these areas. Mm-hmm. And what had been to where we are now.
No, I totally get that. Not for a full-blown history lesson, because definitely a lot of it is pretty complicated. But I wanted to touch on two things that I actually... one was one that I was doing and something related to something else. One is something that I looked up for this in particular.
Okay.
The first thing was, there is a history immediately, sort of from the get of Western European civilization interaction with Central and South America, and of course North America. Immediate conflict, tension, violence, and one of the great examples of that is a book that you and I have recently been reading, that I definitely recommend for people.
Bananas book, I swear.
A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. It's a fascinating book that essentially begins with Columbus coming to Haiti and Cuba and Hispaniola, and committing a genocide. And then we move on all the way to the Clinton administration. And so I bring this up because it's, again, this example of there used to be a people that are no longer here. Mm-hmm. And it's this influence of Western European culture into, a native land that ultimately resulted in, through all sorts of tactics, all of them, horrifying, the entire, loss of a culture. And it's very gripping stuff. I highly recommend that you pick up the book and read it. I couldn't possibly do it justice without just starting to quote it, and then I'll just get carried away.
We would be here for all night. He would just start to read it.
But essentially, that's sort of the summation of it, and it then of course ties into later on. You were talking about the history of Central and South America, and pretty much even since America got going in earnest, eventually we started to also turn our interest toward Central and South America. You start with things like the Mexican American War, and the annexation of Texas and that whole very complicated thing. And then eventually you move all the way on into the 20th century, and in 1954, amongst, a whole movement of very, deep-rooted government policy, the CIA decided to go and depose a democratically elected leader in Guatemala, and it led to a dictatorship.
Fun.
And that was a very common MO if you go and look into United States history, especially in relation to the CIA and some of the other alphabet organizations. There is a history of deposing people, getting involved with Central and South America, with people, exploiting people, people, resources, and, getting in bed with things like cartels, and fueling some of the whole drug war crisis.
That's why they just skip right over that in school. Mm-hmm. We really don't focus on South America past a point in its own purpose.
Yeah. It's because it gets very messy. And this is a part of that history. And so in a sort of summation, again, very quickly, the CIA sanctioned a deposition of a government in the 50s, which led to a dictatorship. By the 60s, leftist rebel groups in especially rural areas started to rise up. Mm-hmm. And it led to a 36-year-long civil war.
Wow, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, and we're over here boasting about our Civil War.
From 1960 onward, there was a 36-year-long Civil War, which is the context, right, of where we find El Norte.
Oh, fantastic! Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mm-hmm. This is what I needed. This is exactly what I was talking about.
And so, I guess with that said, we should go ahead and get going.
Yes, dive on in.
El Norte came out in 1983. It's rated R. It's 2 hours and 21 minutes. It is directed by Gregory Nava, who also came up with the story, and then it is written by Anna Thomas. It stars Zaid Sylvia Gutierrez as Rosa, and David Villalpando as Enrique. And the premise is after their family is killed in a government massacre, brother and sister Enrique and Rosa flee Guatemala and embark on a perilous journey to El Norte, the United States. And with that said, dear, what did you think of El Norte?
This movie was like watching like a Shakespeare or an opera, you know, without singing. You know, it had these acts that it was broken up into, which I loved. I loved the headers being our locations pretty much. You know, we start in the village, and then we move to this journey that they go on, and then we end in Los Angeles. And I think that's fantastic. I think it was very clear what was happening with them, and they were almost like curtain breaks. And I really loved the fact that this movie had a lot of interesting visuals when it came to the camera work and the storytelling. You know, it was another movie where even if I didn't know the language, I feel like I would still understand what was happening on the screen just by watching it alone, which was really nice. So since I don't speak Spanish or the Indian language that they speak in the film that I do not know the name of at the moment, but I really I thought that this movie was a fascinating journey as well. I love looking at different cultures and exploring that through a medium that I feel is a trustworthy lens into that. You know, I felt like this was very honest in how these people actually are. I loved looking at the fact that even though they had their cultural identity, they still were steeped in Catholicism, and there were symbols of that everywhere in the film. You know, even in the outskirts of Guatemala, you know, Christianity still had a hold, it's such a fascinating thing of how far, you know, something can truly spread and truly bring us together, but not really. But then this journey that these siblings take is one that is unlike any other that we've seen. Even in this month, we've seen a lot of movies that are journey movies this month, and I feel like that's a common theme in a lot of these Hispanic films that we have seen. But I think that everyone is a different narrative. You know, this is this truly loving family unit that is just being broken apart by war and by prejudice, and they go on this journey to the north, and this is their entire story basically the moment, like this moment before things go bad. You know, this sweet moment where we get to meet everybody, the household, when everything is perfect still, and then slowly each thing gets ripped away, and there are trials that these children, honestly, they're like young adults, have to take. And it reminded me a lot of like The Land, you know, these really harsh environments, and then the fact that they were still so optimistic was just a lovely way to like keep it going, you know, as well. Even when they finally, you know, after all these trials, make it to the States, you know, and there's still trials, you know, and things aren't working out the way that they thought, but there's still so much hope, and there's still things to celebrate. And I loved the moment when they go and get into the really crappy apartment that they get, and it's awful looking. Like it looks like, you know,
It's a dive, you know.
Yeah, crap stains on the walls and stuff. Like it looks so terrible, but like they're still marveling at the fact that there's electricity, and that the toilet,
water.
yeah, the toilet flushes, and that's just like something that they've, you know, never experienced before in their hometown in Guatemala, and the fact that was still like a blessing even though it wasn't the conditions that they were expecting. And I really enjoyed this movie a lot. It has a lot of like truly, truly beautiful moments, truly tender moments as well with our leads. That is really refreshing. This movie goes to a lot of sore spots, and like, but it's a safe movie, but it's definitely, it touches on a lot of things that are very necessary to be talked about, but in a very safe and comforting way. I think that our characters are really likable. Just crappy things keep happening to them.
No, for sure. This movie, going into it, I didn't necessarily have a lot of particular expectation. And as it got going, I was pretty immediately hooked into it. And it's not long, but 2 hours 21 is not short.
No.
And so when we hit an hour in, I was pretty amazed at how quickly that hour had gone by. It's broken up. The movie is structured into 3 parts. The first part is named after their father.
Mm-hmm.
The second part is the coyote.
Yes.
And the third part is El Norte. When they finally, have arrived in America. And they all 3 take on, some... They each have their own very specific sort of beginning points and end points that also cohesively go on to create this arcing, sort of narrative journey for our siblings. What I was really so impressed by with this movie, honestly, was at a certain point while we were watching it, I was like, I bet this thing is considered like one of the top-notch adaptations of a novel.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no novel.
Oh, I can see where you would think that there would be like a novel. It is very like grippingly dramatic.
And it's so rich. And it has again that
kind of like
depth to it, and that likability to it, I think, and it's so well structured. Mm-hmm. To your point of getting us into the family and their struggle and creating that likability. And it's also so classically literary. Mm-hmm. It's a perfect sort of Greek tragedy setup.
Yeah, I was thinking like the Joy Luck Club, the mm-hmm. fact that that is definitely based off of a book. Mm-hmm. And there's stripping with things happening, but like this didn't have that,
Yeah. And so I found this movie really, really phenomenal. To your point, our 2 main leads, Rosa and Enrique, are engrossing people. And it's fascinating to watch them go on this journey where they make really tough decisions and really hard sacrifices, and it never gets better. And seeing how they respond to that reality, that they're kind of hitting, I don't know exactly how old they're supposed to be, but she's young enough that like she's only just now seriously dating. And so I'm thinking that they're probably late teens.
Yeah, I was thinking that she was probably still, I guess, in that high school range mm-hmm. of being like, maybe she was just 18, mm-hmm. and now she can start to...
And he was maybe 20.
Yeah,
And it's this really, really brutal, sort of coming of age story where life just ends up hitting them like a brick, time after time after time. And even though they meet good people along the way, life itself never relents. And it is very, again, classically structured, classically literary in its base narrative form of setup and payoff, of giving and taking, of providing olive branches and taking them away from our characters, and in giving them doorways and options that allow them to make right and wrong calls. But I think what's also really a great a standout aspect of the movie is I think it has a lot of the same sort of, for me, melodrama but also otherworldly quality of certain elements of the Frida film, where they also really play with
her art and stuff, yeah.
And in hyping up a moment.
Yeah.
One of the moments for me that really stands out is the moment of when they finally see an American city, and we get this great big bombastic score, with these aerial shots of the city, just this real
yeah. And
grand...
it's not even it's where were they? They were in San Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was they were really just hyping up San Diego.
Yeah, and it's just this pounding drum that you hear.
Yeah, or when she looks at the women that come into the I guess it was a dry cleaners, an alterations place where she's working, and she's just in awe of them, and there's this huge moment about these women that are just perfect, to her, models.
Yeah, and again, the otherworldly quality also of the old women that you never see, when you're looking for them.
No, yeah, and the fact that they were just kind of there calling out to her, this...
But also the door shuts to their home as well, it's... it has this really fascinating, constantly throughout it, otherworldly quality, again, that touches, like we talked about, the magical realism element, so at play in so many of the films that we've watched this month, is so very prevalent here in this film. And as far as the context for it, politically, that dictatorship, that civil war, is what ultimately ruins their lives. Because it's only because these people feel that they have to rise up that they end up getting targeted by the army, by the military branch of this dictatorship.
Yeah.
That ultimately results in their family getting butchered. And, it's... What was also really so striking about this film for me, that was oh wow, it went that far, was the digging up of the dead. They couldn't even have peace. Yeah. The military came in, took away everyone, including the bodies. They took away all sort of sign of these people as best as they could.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was an eradication, because I assumed that they weren't taking those women to do anything, wholesome with them.
No. And then they arrive in America, and again, going back to setup and payoff, my father always said that, the rich only saw us as strong arms. And then one of the last, spoken lines that we hear from Enrique is, I have strong arms.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just, it's so well done, but also going back to how it's such a different movie than some of the other ones that we've seen. It's a radically different movie, of course, than La Misma Luna. Under the Same Moon.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the, this lovely story of a mother and her son, torn apart and eventually being reunited.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know.
and this kind of like,
And we never get to see how life was probably still hard once they were together, but at least they were together.
yes.
And here we kind of have at least some of that similar texture of life is hard, but they are together. But even that doesn't necessarily have the same satisfaction. Like, this movie is just oftentimes tragic.
No, honestly, but I think that it's a very beautiful story, and it's very much worth a watch for sure. For really anybody who is game. For
Yeah.
some, for an interesting dive into a completely different culture, a completely different perspective. I think that the acting is truly phenomenal. Is heartbreaking. There were times when watching Enrique where I was like, this guy's going too hard right now. I was like, everybody else is like giving me like, this is just a normal day, and homie was like crying, and I was like, wow, just I couldn't get enough. I was intoxicated by this film.
Well, and I talked about the sort of unworld qualities of it, but it also, to your point, when we first watched it, you first saw some of the footage and you were like, is this a documentary? I think that also speaks to even though there are some other worldly visuals, there's also just this real raw, almost, 70s, and this is early 80s, which is kind of late 70s, cinema verite sort of quality to it, not unlike Altman with MASH. Just this raw presentation of life, of people, of how it is.
No, yeah, because it kind of felt like B-roll of something where somebody went somewhere and filmed some stuff, and then they put it in the background of their film. It felt too real.
And that even applies moving all the way into, their journey through Mexico. The bus feels like it's stacked with, people that aren't there to be filmed, but are legitimately on a journey.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That bus, I was not expecting that bus to just pull onto the side of the road and just like, everybody, all right, we're going to go to nap now. We're going to go to sleep tonight. And I just such a foreign thing to me. I've also never been on an overnight bus before. So maybe we also do that in the States. So I don't know. But that was just crazy,
For sure.
Just kept the lights on and was just napping on the road.
No, absolutely. So I guess if you had to rate El Norte, what would you give it?
Oh, I think that this movie is a 5 out of 5. I really just thought that I couldn't look away from it, and you mentioned earlier, the time of the movie. 2 hours, 20 minutes is not like the longest film we've ever watched, but it's definitely not something that you like go into when you're like got a time thing. If you watch this movie when you've got all the time in the world.
Yeah, when you've got 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah, and it just breezed past because I was just so in it. I couldn't look away from this movie. One, because I don't know half of the movie, more than 2/3 of this movie was not in English, so I couldn't look away just to understand it because I was reading the entire time. But also, it was just I didn't want to stop watching this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I never felt like anything that ever happened on their journey felt out of place.
Yes, that's a fair point.
Sometimes on movies like this, you're like, and then really? Like, it just keeps...
crank the stakes too high.
Yeah, it just keeps getting ridiculously out of whack, and I think that this movie was really connected to the honesty of what this life could look like.
No, for sure. I'll go with a 4.5.
Okay.
I think it's absolutely tremendous. I really don't. I think that there are a few moments where I honestly just thought it was a novel because I was honestly like, I bet that gets better explained in the book. But for the most part, honestly, like it's a tremendous movie, and I think it's definitely, I think, a must watch at least once. For everyone. It's a gripping, sweet, tender, very, very oftentimes heartbreaking movie where people make the choice that you absolutely know that they shouldn't, and it has the exact consequence that you know that it's going to have, and it's still heartbreaking all the same. And I think that that's definitely where the movie has some of its absolute power.
No, this movie is dramatic, but like in the best kind of way.
Moving on, I wanted to talk about a few things. Of course, we recently had a trailer come out for the Neil Druckmann Last of Us television series for HBO. What did you think?
Copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. It's just the game. And I mean, maybe it's because you literally just finished a playthrough of the game, like, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or something like that now. But the game is very fresh in my mind. So we watched that and I was like, I know where that is. I know where that is. I know who that is. I know what that is. I know what that is. I know what... And I guess that's what, true Star Wars fans feel like watching anything that Disney puts out nowadays, where they're like, gosh, it must be really nice to be up on the know. Oh my gosh. It looks fine.
No, I think that's fair.
I'm gonna it was really just like a teaser.
Yeah.
Other than like little blips.
We didn't even really get to hear anyone speak.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to see them do it. I can't just see people looking stoically in profile and at the camera and at things and then see a clicker and go, oh, art. Like I'm gonna need a little bit more baiting, because at the end of the day, I've seen the art. I've played the art. I've not actually, that's a lie. I've not actually played the art. I've seen the art played before me. And I think that it's totally good as it is, but I also understand, expanding the scope of who can access it.
No, I get that. In a bit of very tragic news, the rapper Coolio is passed away at the age of 59.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
really?
Coolio, yeah.
Like today?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I did not know this.
Yeah, the news broke earlier today that Coolio passed away.
Yeah, oh my gosh, no, I had no idea.
Yeah. And so that's quite the shame, honestly. Cause of death is currently still not known, at least as of this recording. But it's a real shame. I remember Coolio. He did the opening theme song for All That.
Oh my gosh.
If I'm not mistaken, or was it Keenan and Kel? It was.
I think it was Keenan and Kel.
Mm-hmm. And so I think that it's a real shame, and I of course grew up listening to Gangsta's Paradise as well, as one did. Back
in the burbs.
Once upon a time. But also just 59 is tragically young.
No, yeah, honestly.
That's far, far, far too young.
Yeah, you're supposed to be like 100.
Yeah, and ideally, I suppose, if you want to, I guess, make it that far.
I mean, that's I feel like that's everybody's goal, and like, the closer you get to it, the more you win.
Was Godard recently passed away via medically assisted suicide.
I'm not sure who we're talking about.
Jean-Luc Godard, the French New Wave filmmaker.
Is this is something that happened recently?
Yeah, he recently chose to. He was done. He was older. You know, I mean, he was an active filmmaker in the 60s. He was, I think, in his 80s at this point. And he decided that it was time.
Fascinating. That sounds like the premise to a sci-fi movie that's coming out this fall.
Well, or you can just go and look up some information on the real life story of Jack Kevorkian, I suppose.
I mean, yeah, but I was thinking more of like a I Am Robot deal.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, no, that makes more sense. A Bicentennial Man, sort of.
Oh, yeah.
With Robin Williams. Mm-hmm. No, I see where you're at with that. There was another little bit of movie news that I was going to bring up, and it's honestly escaped me because I didn't write it down.
Always gotta write things down.
I do always gotta write things down. Is what happens when you have a note outside of what's been already previously written down.
Get a bigger notebook.
No, that's... You just gotta attach it, sticky notes.
That's fair. That's fair. I do that all the time.
Mm-hmm. But that's pretty much all that I have for y'all. If you are, affected by the hurricane, I hope that y'all are all safe out there. If you are listening to this and the hurricane is happening around you, I hope that you are listening to this in a safe place. And if you are not, get somewhere safe. That's an order from the Film Buds.
That's right, and that's serious. You better heed.
And beyond that, definitely be mindful, if you're in the path of the storm, try only to go out for necessary things, that sort of thing. That's about all that I have. Dear, do you have anything that you would like to say to the listeners?
I mean, you thoroughly covered the stay safe. I liked it. While staying safe, and if you have power, turn on something that you haven't watched in a while. Take a cozy day, have a good time, staying in. Because guess what? It's Friday.
Yeah.
You made it. You made it to the end of the week. High five yourself and have a beer on me. So,
do not send us a bill. We will not.
We will not. We will
not.
We will not reimburse you.
We want you to email the Film Buds, but we do not want you to email us your bill for the beer. We will not reimburse you that invoice.
But it will help us know that you do know how to spell filmbuds@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm. The filmbudspodcast@gmail.com.
Yep, what he said.
But with that said, of course, follow us also on social media. Check out last week's episode. Check out all of our Hispanic Heritage episodes.
Yes.
We've done, of course, quite a few this month, but then we also have 2 that we did last year. And also, let's get ready, y'all. We're about to be in spooky season officially. It's October.
Woo woo.
So get ready for, some horror-related Film Buds content starting next Friday.
I mean, horror-related every month, but specifically in Halloween.
Yeah.
October.
Halloween season.
It's the best holiday of the holiday sandwich that is the end of the year.
No, that's fair. And that's just about all that we have for you guys. Stay safe, keep listening, be on the lookout for the upcoming Henry episode, and yeah, take it easy, guys. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.